It's a hell of a start to know what makes you happy. Lucille Ball, comedian and film studio owner. Hi, everybody. I'm talking today about what makes us happy. What makes you happy? Get curious about that. Once we know exactly what makes us happy, the world begins to unfold in such a powerful way. So when we can apply what makes us happy and then do that thing every day, we learn so much more about ourselves. And you can really master having these conversations with your partner. Okay, so I want to share a personal story. When I was a kid, and this is, of course, many years ago, and my husband and I, we first started dating and getting together, and we were kids and we were having fun. I had this habit of asking him, "What do you want to do today?" Okay? And then he would throw out some things that he wanted to do. And even if I didn't want to do those things, I would go do them. I would clam up and not say what I wanted to do. Even though I had these thoughts and ideas and desires, but I would push me in the background and go do these things with him. And what happened is over time, when we, moved into our 30s and 40s and we're raising our family, we would go on family vacations and I would do the same thing. To the point to where I had no idea what I really wanted, what I really desired. Anybody have that experience? And by the way, this bubbled out into my profession, into what I did for a living back in the day, into every aspect of my life. And I couldn't figure out why I was feeling so, kind of mad when I was doing the things with my husband and my family that I didn't want to do. I was getting resentful. And I was frustrated because I knew that I was never going to get the things I want anyway. Why? Well, because I didn't say anything. Okay, so this week, this kind of goes back into what I want to share with all of you today. Once you know exactly what makes you happy, now you've got a really good tool that you can dive into every single day. Back in the day, I really thought that if I was unhappy, it was my husband's fault. It was my husband's fault. It was my boss's fault. It was everybody's fault. But what I know now is that if I'm unhappy, it's because I am not giving myself those experiences and those things that bring me pleasure and make me happy. Okay, so how does that go? So here's what you need to do. First of all, you have to get very clear on what makes you happy, what brings you pleasure. That's a big deal. And you know what, guys? If you can't figure that out, ask yourself, what would I love? You're not alone. This is really difficult to do because maybe like me, you spent lots of years shoving yourself back and putting yourself last. But the truth is, until you know exactly what your desires are and your dreams, and you're able to express those and give those to yourself, and also let your partner know what your desires are ahead of time, okay, you're always going to feel unfulfilled. And you're not going to have the relationship that you really desire. So what I want to share with all of you, another personal story here, was when I started noticing how I was withholding myself from having these experiences and being frustrated and resentful. Once I started noticing that, I had to pay attention to how I was thinking. And what I realized is that for years I'd been withholding myself from having the things that I really loved and I really wanted, and even withholding myself from my dreams and desires. And it took me a long time to really identify what my dreams were, because I had withheld myself all those years and had defined my happiness by my husband, by my child, by my business. And when I wasn't happy, I blamed all these things. So that's the first step, everyone, is to know, number one, what do you desire? What do you really desire? And this takes a little work. Sometimes, like I had a client, Nancy, who took her a while to figure out how to dive into this, because this was a new normal for her, and it was a new normal for me too. So make a list of what your desires are. You got to know how to express that too, because you got to let people know, not people, but mostly the people you love the most. Okay? Because that also allows you to make a personal plan, okay? So an example I have is Ken and I went to Hawaii, and this was, oh my gosh, probably 15 years ago. And I knew at that moment, what I really wanted to do. We went to Maui, and for me, Maui was a really cool place. Back in the 70s when I was in high school, it was kind of the neat place where there are all these yoga studios and all the, Chris Christopherson lives there and this whole thing. So the first thing I wanted to do was to go down to a little town and walk around to go window shopping. Anybody have that experience, right? I mean, oh my gosh, I really wanted to do that. And my husband, he wanted to go to the beach. Well, I knew that the smart plan was for me to have that conversation with him ahead of time, before we even got there. And so I rolled out to him, oh my gosh, I want so bad to go down to a little town and go shopping. And I'll tell you why I shared that with him, because in the past when we traveled, I didn't say a word. I went down to the beach or whatever his thing was, and then I spent the whole time feeling resentful and being judgy and weird inside of my head. Anyone have that experience? And I didn't show up in a really positive way, and I was mad. But yet I was withholding from sharing that ahead of time, okay? And I knew I wasn't going to get the thing. It's this weird thought loop, right? And so ahead of time, when we went to Maui this last time, 15 years ago, I shared with him, this is what I'd love to do. What would you love to do? And he shared with me. I said, hey, okay, so how about I go do A while you do B? And then we can meet together and we can go do C. And he was down with that, okay? So see how that works? So that's the first step, is to identify what brings you pleasure. The second step is to understand your thought loop. What are you withholding yourself from, and why? What are those things that come up for you? Okay, so this is a real framework, isn't it? It's a real process. But I wanted to share that with you today, that, hey, if you're having a little bit of trouble now expressing your desires and giving those things to yourself, you're not alone. We have been raised and shamed and tamed and enculturated to really put ourselves last, but not anymore. Listen, I used to think if I was unhappy, it's because my husband was not making me happy. And now what I know, and I also help other women with, is exploring what makes you happy and give those things to yourself every day. And we call that self-care. And I talk a lot about that here, and you all have read a lot about that. Okay, everybody, I hope this was helpful. I hope my story was helpful. Thank you, everyone, for being part of my heart-centered community. I'm sending all my love, and I'll be sharing more juicy tips and ideas for you. And by the way, I've been sharing a lot of my freebies and a lot of my some of my paid products as well. They're going to help you out with your relationship. And if you would like to schedule a coffee chat just to do a little intro, meet and greet, I'm right here. Schedule a call with me.